Hello, everybody. Welcome to Captive Audience. Anderson here with Leslie Schneider on Wonderful Wednesday. And we're glad to see you all, or at least hopefully you all are glad to see us since we can't see you. Can you hear me? Oops. So how's it going, Leslie?
Yeah, it's a little spotty. It's good. It's good.
Okay.
It's Wednesday. We're halfway through.
All right. Halfway hump day. I like it. And for the audience, we're having a little bit of spottiness with our connection, so bear with us. This happens periodically, and hopefully we'll get it'll get a little better as we go along. Basically, as every week, we got tremendous things to talk about. The goalposts are, it seems like that we're playing with a short field for the first time. What a wonderful place to be. What a wonderful place to be alive. If you have any historical perspective, this is absolutely an amazing thing. And so you wake up in the morning, you can't wait to turn it on to see, how Trump has flummoxed the enemy again. And once again, I think it's happening with regard to the what's going on in DC. I mean, you got to love it. I mean, so
Yeah.
now the left is upset because think about this for a minute. They're upset because he's trying to reduce crime. It's another one of those 80% issues. 80% of the population gets it. And DC, for anybody who's been there and anybody who knows anything about it, it's been crime infested forever. And it's not new. Maybe it's gotten worse, but it's not new. It's just terrible.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean everyone knows that DC is a terrible place to live. The schools are awful. They actually, I think it was they used to have a voucher program so that you could send your kids to your school of choice, and because really anybody who has the means sends their kids to private schools, and so this charter schools is a way for regular people to send their kid to a higher quality school, if you don't have the money for private school. And I think it was Obama who eliminated that. So you've got
Mhm.
crappy schools, you've got high cost of living, and then the crime is through the roof.
Yeah, it's an unbelievable situation. And once again, it's another case where a city becomes blue and everything turns into a turd. I mean, that's exactly what happened. I mean, just as a little background for those of you who didn't know. So District of Columbia, by our federal constitution, is designed so that it's not run, it's not within a single state. So it belongs to basically the federal government to run. However, in the late 60s, in order to what's the term we're looking for? So after LBJ was in office, they were looking for a way to the leftists were looking for a way to basically maximize their votes, and so they cried and cried about having home rule because DC was the only place in the country that didn't have what they call home rule. So they gave them home rule and the ability to run themselves, if you will. And since then, the place has just gone to complete hell. Now, for those of you who are online who are old enough to remember it, there's been a string of really bad politicians. But I remember coming of age under Marion Barry. Do you remember Marion Barry?
Oh
So
yeah,
he was the
the
mayor,
crack, the
yeah, in
crack
the
fiend.
80s. The crack fiend. I mean, this is amazing. This is a city where the mayor of the city got busted doing crack with prostitutes, went to jail, and got reelected after he got out of jail. And you can't make this up. You can't make it up.
Maybe in Vegas. Maybe that would happen in
Yeah,
Vegas too. I don't know.
yeah,
Well, the
exactly. I mean,
mayor, is it the governor of no, the mayor of Vegas is being investigated for mob connections for organized crime. So yeah, maybe him.
at least in Vegas is what you'd expect. But this is the capital of the seat of government of the most powerful country in the world, and we got basically teenage criminals running around beating people up. It's like unreal, and the number of cases and people. And this is the thing about this one: the upper middle class people that go to work there all the time are scared to death to go to work. I remember I was watching a podcast the other day, and they talked about what it was like. So when you drive in DC at night, you don't stop at lights. You slow down because if you stop and the light's red, somebody runs up and carjacks you. So you just slowly blow through the light and then speed up again. And I remember that because I was in LA during the mid 80s when the crack thing got going. And I had a great aunt who lived in central LA. And that's precisely how you behaved there. It was the eeriest thing in the world to drive through the middle of a major big city. You could see the downtown tires, downtown office buildings. You could see them from the house, and the streets were like nobody was on the streets. and cars are just going through lights. You would slow down and just keep going because you were scared to death that if you stopped, you would get mugged. And that's what we have in the capital of the United States. I mean, unbelievable.
It is. It is. Yeah. I mean, that's supposed to be our pride and joy. That's supposed to be our, sort of the crown jewel in the country. And
Yeah.
you think about how much money is in DC, and the cost of real estate in DC. I don't know how these people put up with it, but I guess they do. They do. So
Yeah.
anyway,
It's insane.
even the union boss is complaining, filing complaints, saying that the crime stats are being underreported, falsified. Actually, he gave an example where the somebody would show up for you know an assault, and it turns out it's a murder, or it's domestic abuse, but they're told it's just maybe a fight, like a shouting match. And so yes, and then of course, if you have these crime statistics falsified, then of course it looks like the crime rates are going down, which is exactly what's going on. And so you've got Dems, hollering about, well, the crime stats have been down. Well, you've got the union boss saying the crime stats are being falsified. So of course they're going down. But
Yeah.
I think it's fascinating. I think it's fascinating that Trump is sending in the National Guard and perhaps prepping for something.
Oh, and I think that's the other side of this. I mean, you look at the timing of this. So we have the potential indictments coming down. This federalization of DC is only good for 30 days, and then Congress has to approve it, or they have to resubmit and do it again for another 30 days. So you have to think to yourself, if there are major indictments come down, and there are major, let's say ex-government employees who get indicted and perp walked, the left will go absolutely bananas. So with protests, and most of the, by the way, is paid protests too, which is
Sure.
another thing that's being investigated. These guys are all being paid to go protest in the streets. So it's going to be a really interesting month.
Yeah, it is. It is. And the fact that it happened so quickly after the press conference. I mean, those vans started rolling up, and federal agents, piling out, and I mean, they're locked and loaded. They're ready for something. And I love it. I cannot wait.
You know what's awesome about it? They put him in the wilderness for 4 years. They cheated him out of office, and basically they're going to hang on their own gibbet now, because what they did by doing that, they gave him 4 years to plan this. I mean, every single thing he's done has been very strategic and planned. And every time they respond to one thing, it's like whack-a-mole. 10 more things pop up. And none of these are winning issues for Democrats. You're anti-fighting crime. The vast majority of Americans don't care, how the crime gets enforced. They just want the stuff to stop.
Right.
And I'd imagine there's a lot of people in DC who are secretly clapping their hands because they know they can't do it in public. But now they can go to work in the morning or in the evening and not get clubbed. They can go out to the clubs. They can go out on the town or carjacked. So
Yep.
it's going to be very interesting to see. And when those crime stats drop, I mean, real crime stats, like people will say, like they're making these lies up about crime was going down. But people can see with their eyes near what reality is. Just like the media lied to us about the protests, back in 2020. Well, these protesters are not violent. Meanwhile, behind the reporter, somebody's getting there's a raging fire, and somebody's getting beat up. They're peaceful protests.
Of course. Yeah. Standing on an overturned car with an AK in your hand and a face mask. That's peaceful. Okay.
It's a peaceful protest, right? So, I think the truth's going to come out. Most of the population can see they can see and they can hear for themselves, and most of them are thinking this is insane, right?
Yeah.
So here they are on the wrong side. Yet another issue.
Yeah, I hope you're right, Don. I mean, I have been. Yeah, I mean, I've been looking around for years, going, "Don't believe my own eyes." Like, that's the message. Don't believe your own eyes. Don't,
that's it.
And people have been just going along, and it's like, how are people just going along? And finally, I don't know. I mean, honestly, what the things that Trump is doing is benefiting everybody. It's elevating all businesses, it's elevating
Mhm.
all citizens, it's improving the safety of everyone. It's going to be hopefully reducing the taxes of everyone. It's going to be increasing jobs for everyone. So, even it's like the sunrise sets, the sun rises and the rain falls on both
Mhm.
the wicked and the righteous. I mean, it's
Right.
same thing with Trump. He's going to help everybody. So I mean, who's going to what if you're some crazy leftist and you don't agree with Trump, you hate Trump, you're going to send back that tax return, you're going to not take the job at the manufacturing plant down the street. What are you going to do? How are you going to protest that?
Mhm. Yeah, and you look at this, and the irrational behavior. It's completely irrational. It's that Trump derangement syndrome is definitely a real thing. Um, they keep having these. You look at these political shows where they have leftists on there, and they keep wondering what their strategy should be. Their strategy should be, or your strategy should be, you should stop bashing the guy that
Yeah.
over 50% of the population voted for, by the way. So you're really bashing over 50% of the population. I mean, this is just not smart. If you're trying to sell somebody something, in this case, you're trying to sell them on voting for you, don't call your customers stupid. That's a
Right.
bad strategy. I used to be in sales for a long time. I never sold anything by calling my customers stupid. But that, but that's what they've been doing. And it's just so try setting forth policies that your customer base might like. And they never talk policy. It's all, you know, it's the usual name calling, racist,
Yeah.
misogynist, Nazi,
Yeah.
you know, that
And
that's what they sell.
what is so, I mean, and this just comes from the hubris and also the hatred, um, that they would just reject things coming from Trump, coming from conservatives, when the truth is they and their constituents are going to benefit. And if they would embrace it, they could pretend that they had something to do with it, right? They could kind of co-opt the narrative, in my district, jobs have increased this amount, inflation has dropped this amount, education has improved in
Mhm.
this way, test scores are up. Like, they could claim credit for all of these good things and just ignore
Yeah.
Trump and who started it. But and if they're smart, they'll do that. If they Because that's going to be the way to
Mhm.
actually start turning the message around, is start showing some successes. And they have no problem lying about it and taking credit for somebody else's idea. But it's like,
Mhm.
like they just can't get beyond themselves in order to see the opportunity.
Yeah, their hatred just blinds them to what common sense strategy might
Yeah.
be. And one of the things I've come to really like about Trump, a lot of people will say, a lot of people who are even conservative will say, "Oh, I like what he's doing, but I wish he wouldn't have this hard edge." No, you have to have that hard edge. They have been like the left has been doing radical, crazy stuff for the last 40, 50 years. And the be nice strategy has gotten us like Zippo, nothing. And it's about time we've got a street brawler for president now who came out of the construction business in New York and New Jersey. And if you hit me, I'm going to hit you twice as hard back. That's what leftists are not used to. I sat through, and I remember watching. There's a lot of campaigns I watched, but I think the one that just irked me the most was when Obama was running against McCain,
Oh,
Arizona, and he never punched. He didn't even run a
no.
campaign. It was like he was scared to death
Yeah.
of him. It was the worst campaign I've
Well,
ever
he was
seen. And I
he
remember
was
thinking,
too busy handicapping
yeah,
Palin. I mean, he was
yeah,
already
yeah,
eating his own instead of actually running a campaign and getting aggressive.
ah, yeah. We've been stuck with like the worst. If this was boxing, you would call them like basically the bottom of the
Yeah.
class. We haven't had a true heavyweight get in the ring since Reagan, and finally we have one. I didn't think I'd see another Reagan, by
But
the way.
even
I
Ray,
mean, here it is.
but even Reagan made the mistake of amnesty. And that
Right.
just sort of starts it, because everybody goes, well, I guess if he did it, I'll keep doing it. Everybody loves Reagan. So
He made the mistake of trusting him. You cannot. Your assumption has to be they're the enemy. You have to treat them just like treat the Chinese Communist Party,
yeah,
or like to treat the old Soviet
yeah,
Union. If you do something, what was that old thing adage he had? Trust but
yeah.
verify. What you have to be with them. You cannot trust them because they are out to destroy the United States, and there is no middle ground. I've had this conversation with a couple of people. It's like the Israelis and the Hezbollah. Their stated objective is to kill Jews and destroy Israel. Well, where's the room to negotiate? I don't see a negotiating room. And it's the same thing with the people who've taken over the Democrat Party. Um, and you have the old JFK wing of the party. Those people are still around, but none of them, either A, none of those are in power, or B, they don't have the stones to speak up against
Yeah.
this. So that's what we have.
Yeah. Well, okay, we've talked about crime in New York. Let's
Mhm.
talk about, or sorry, in DC. Um,
Mhm.
let's talk about Kristi Noem and Department of Homeland Security and regular Americans getting involved in fighting crime. So,
Yeah.
kind of as we were talking about, we've got there's 20,000 employees in who work for who work as ICE agents, and
Mhm.
just since July, when they started a recruiting campaign, they've got over 100,000 applicants.
That is so awesome. That's the kind of government hiring spree I can get
I
behind.
love it.
So the last administration hired 100,000 IRS agents to steal your money. This one hires 100,000 ICE agents to defend us.
Right.
I love
Yeah.
it.
So, I mean, all these people that are looking around and going, this is not right. What can I do about it? How can I protect my communities?
Mhm.
How can I make things safer for my family and my neighbors? They're doing it. So they're Kristi Noem is giving away or offering up to $50,000 in signing bonuses. She's forgiving student loans. She's doing all sorts of stuff. She's enhancing retirement packages. She's amended the age limit, and people want to get involved. So we're just,
Heck, I want to get a job.
I know.
I think I'm beyond the age limit, but hey, maybe I'll make an
I don't
exception.
know. I don't know.
I think that is so great. I mean, they have gotten away with murder on this issue forever. I remember I had a sales rep when I was in San Diego. He talked about being a kid. I think he lived in San Ysidro's right on the border,
Yeah,
right? It's
yeah.
a little town right
Yeah.
on the edge. Okay. So he grew up down there, and he said he remembers being, and this would have been like the mid '70s. He said he remembers being a kid playing in the backyard, and he said like a whole fleet of Mexicans would be sneaking across the border through his backyard, and they'd turn to the kids and go shh, and then tiptoe. He said it was all day, every day, and that was back in the '70s. So we've done nothing for what, 50 years, and it's about time we put a stop to it. It's so destructive in so many ways. And in California, and as usual, the people who want these policies aren't the ones who suffer from them, not initially. So it's the working class, it's the poor, it's their schools get destroyed, it's the their medical systems get completely overwhelmed. The crime that goes to the roof happens in their neighborhood. It's not happening in Palos Verdes or Rancho Santa Fe or Rancho Bernardo or Lake Oswego or Bellevue. Name your Tony left wing town. They don't feel that. It always gets felt at the bottom first, and then it works its way upwards. And what they do at the top, of course, is they just wind up building gated communities, which is what they do in Mexico. Everybody who has anything lives behind a wall, and everybody else has to suffer.
Yeah. Well, I guess we could bust them into Martha's Vineyard. Oh, we did that. They didn't like it.
Did not like it. Did not like it. Exactly. And it's an excellent bleed into, you brought this when we were talking before we got on about English. And what were you telling me about? There's a congresswoman who
Yeah.
is pushing eliminating English as the language. Go ahead and
Yeah. So
speak on that for a
Kristen
minute.
Gillibrand, who's a Democrat in New York, is complaining that the Trump administration's, I guess, erasure of a law that was implemented. I don't know if it's a law or just a policy, but in 2000, Bill Clinton put in a new rule, basically where he wanted all of government resources and government communications to be available in multiple languages. So, every time you go to the DMV, that's why you can take your driver's test in 20 different languages and have an interpreter, but of course, our road signs are in English, or if you want your welfare benefits or you want your food stamps or whatever, anything that you need from the government has to be available in multiple languages. Well, Trump has said, no, that's not true. We don't need to make that. That is not a constitutionally protected like provision that we need to make for you. And not only is it very, very expensive for the government to maintain all these different websites and landing pages and print materials in other languages, but it's actually divisive. If we truly are going to be a United States of America, we need to have a single language. And he's saying that's English. So all of our materials and all of our communications are going to be in English. Kristen Gillibrand is saying, well, that's just not fair. We've got over, 5.8 million New Yorkers who speak another language than English in the home. And they're not going to be able to access all these benefits that they should be accessing if we require them to speak English. And, maybe they should learn some English. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I minored in French in college. And then after that, I went on and, became pretty fluent in German. And if I were to move to one of those countries, I wouldn't expect them to accommodate me, to take from them. I mean, like maybe if I was hosting a party and I invited everybody and I bought them dinner, I might want them to speak my language. But if I'm going to go take from them, for goodness sakes.
This whole thing about the language is so pernicious, because what it really gets down to is, we're a country that we're not bound by ethnicity, color of skin, any of that stuff. Basically, you can come here, raise your hand, swear allegiance to the pledge allegiance to the Constitution, and you're good to go, right? But the requirements to actually really fully participate in this society, that bar is much higher. And English is basic and foundational to basically participate in everything the country has. So it's beneficial for them to learn it, and it's beneficial for the rest of us for them to learn it. You cannot assimilate speaking a different language. And the worst thing we can have is these ethnic enclaves of people that don't speak, never engage. That's how you wind up in civil war, which at the top of the food chain is what they want in the first place. I mean, I truly believe that. These idiots at the lower levels run around in the streets crying and protesting about it's not fair. Think of people think of the Middle Ages where you had the court gesture with the crazy hat, right? Those are the court gestures. The top of the food chain, they know this is destructive. There's no way they could not know it. History has shown over and over again, when you have countries that are bound together that have multiple languages. I'll give you a quick and dirty example of this. So the Austro-Hungarian Empire, which when they had World War I, they were part of they were joined with Germany in order to fight Great Britain and France and Russia. One of the problems that made Austria-Hungary pretty worthless as an ally, like 20 or 30 languages. Now imagine yourself, you're the captain of a unit, and you got like 10 different languages in your regiment. How are you going to command that? You got to say a command 10 different times. I think one of the things they did was they taught the officers 5 or 6 different basic commands. So the officers knew 5 or 6, taught everybody these 5 or 6 commands that everybody could understand. However, the problem became in that war, as soon as the officers got shot, then what? So they were completely ineffective. This is one of the biggest reasons the empire fell apart. They were falling apart for this reason before the war. That pretty much pushed them over. So a country that is divided by multiple languages, you might have people that speak multiple languages, but got to be one that everybody speaks.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's why it's so easy for these movements to quickly carve off a chunk of the population, because you can't take advantage of the culture and the opportunity in our country if you don't speak the language, if you're not able to really build relationships and build communities with everyone around you. You become isolated. And so then the only voice that you're listening to is that one voice with complete control over you. Yeah. So, it's very easy to see where the flaws are in this whole program. And the people that are screaming against it are, just like on all these other progressive stances, they are completely revealing themselves to be
Yeah.
anti-American, to be just destructionists.
Mhm.
Um, it's just not a winning argument. Again, as somebody who's focused on, well, let's win, Trump always wins, but the left, there's people on the left that always want to win too. We'll get behind the winning argument:
Mhm.
safety, prosperity,
Right. You know,
power within our country. I mean,
it's another one of those things too. It falls into they appeal to the kindness thing again. Oh, it's kind to not require people to go through the effort to learn English.
yeah,
No, it's
yeah,
unkind to
yeah,
not let them go through the requirement to learn English, because if they don't, they're going to permanently stuck in poverty. And here's the side thing to this: and
that's right.
permanently stuck in relying on the government, which is precisely what these leftists want. Again, at the
That's right.
top of the food chain, they want them to be reliant on the government for welfare benefits and that sort of thing. Because if you don't speak the language, that's what you're going to wind up doing. You can't
Right.
progress in society if you don't learn the language. Immigrants that used to come in, if you go back to Ellis Island, people would come here. What's the first thing they would do? Learn the language. Sometimes they go so far as that they wouldn't even allow their original language to be spoken in the home. Now, I'm not advocating
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
That's how hardcore. I know some families like that now. They will not let their kids learn the language of origin because they want to make sure they learn English so they can fully participate in society.
Yeah.
It's an insane thing to handicap your young people in that fashion. And then one other thing I say about this, because I think this is really another interesting point that people are afraid to make. What we have here is unique and special, and we have a moral code that we all know we're born into it, so we don't think about it. But things like, you think it's natural to put trash in a garbage can, for example, right? You think it's normal to put the shopping cart back in the slot rather than just leave it someplace. You think it's normal to not put garbage in the shopping cart and just leave it, right? You go into these communities where we have this massive influx of immigration from countries that are non-Western in origin, and it's just trashed because we're there. It looks like where they were from, so they're bringing their habits and they bring them here, and they don't work here. So a lot of these cultures, the way that you survive is by breaking the law because there is no law enforcement. For example, in Mexico, bribery is the norm. So you do that here, you go to jail, right? But they're not used to a culture of following the rules. They're not used to a culture of respecting laws. They're not used to a culture where laws are enforced. And
Yeah.
so if you bring in too many of them, they can't assimilate. And a place where stealing is against the law and you will go to jail for stealing, right? They're used to that. And if you get too many of them here, you wind up with situations like, well, you named like Minneapolis, right? They come from a different culture where that's not the norm. They
Right.
have to be able to be assimilated, and to do that, you can't bring too many in at one time. We all remember the funny case. We still laugh about it in Ohio. They're eating the cats and eating the dogs, right? You put what 60? I think it was like 30,000 Somalians. I think it was, or Haitians in a town with a population of 60 or 70,000, and it just looks like hell overnight. And they are eating the dog and cats because where they're from, that's what you do.
That's okay. Yeah. That's right.
Okay.
Well, and not only does it divide and give power within, for those who are power hungry, to kind of carve out areas of our communities, and and change the rules and change our communities, but it also, I think it allows for vulnerable people. It allows for people to become vulnerable and those who are already vulnerable to continue in that state. If they don't have a way to reach out for help, if they can't speak the language, they can't communicate with their neighbors, they can't, you know, they're not going to do a play date, with another family at school, at their child's school, because they can't speak that same language. And so these
Mhm.
cultures that maybe are not, don't treat women the same way that we do in Western society, don't treat children the same way that we do in society, in Western society, it's allowed to continue. And those
Mhm.
victims don't have any way of reaching out for help. They can't speak with law enforcement. Like I said, they can't share with their neighbor. You know, if gosh, what was all that fighting last night? Well, I just didn't
Mhm.
get involved because I couldn't understand what they were saying. And
Mhm.
well, I don't want to get involved because she always keeps to herself. And so
Mhm.
after, you know what I mean? It's just it
Right.
allows bad behavior to
Mhm.
continue and to accelerate and create more
Yeah.
victims. So there's just
Mhm.
nothing good
And
about it. So I mean, I'm very much in support of this, of abolishing this
mhm.
policy from 2000. So and that's the
Yeah.
other thing that I'm struck by when when Trump will do something. A lot of times it's new, sometimes it'll be new, but a lot of times it's really just getting rid of all the crap that is piled on and piled on, piled on, that wasn't in
Yeah.
the original intention. It wasn't in the Constitution. It didn't exist 50 years ago
Mhm.
or 20 years ago in some cases. We've just had all of these nameless,
Mhm.
faceless bureaucrats that are not elected that have been creating regulations, creating rules, and changing the laws, penalizing businesses, handicapping people, handicapping progress. Um, like I said, victimizing communities. And he's just saying no more of it. And in
Mhm.
fact, we're going to get
It's
rid of it. And anybody who wants to stand up in favor of
it's
red tape and corruption,
mhm. Yeah, it's all designed to grow the size of government, all of it. If you can create a class of people who can't speak the language, they're going to wind up being dependent on welfare, and those are votes that you can buy. The reason to have the border wide open is so you can drive the number of people who are dependent on the government for goodies and benefits, and therefore stay in office and be the uniparty like they are in California. Those are the reasons they pretty much do everything. You look at the gerrymandering issue, same sort of a thing. They've gerrymandered every state that's blue is gerrymandered up the wazoo, and the red states are not. This is another thing I like. I know it's a slightly separate subject, but I think it's hilarious. Texas, for the first time, we have red states behaving like blue states. They're getting a taste of their own medicine. And the great thing about it is there's nothing they can do about it because when they come back and say, we're going to do the same thing, no, you've already done the same thing.
yeah,
There's no more juice to be squeezed out of that lemon. It's not going to happen. If the Republicans simply did what they did, we would be in the majority from now till the cows come home. And so I love the fact that that's happening. They're waking up and buying into the Trump strategy. As you punch me, I'm punching you back twice as hard.
yeah, yeah. No, I think it's great. I think it's wonderful. So we'll see how it goes. I did you hear anything about those? Well, I did hear that those Texas Democrats came back and the redistricting plan was presented. The Dems lost, and then they kind of cried in their soup
Mhm.
after that. But
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah, I hadn't gotten to the news this afternoon, but I'm great. That's what we thought the result would be. It was much ado about nothing, to use William Shakespeare's adage. So it's awesome.
yeah, yeah. Have you heard about any other states that are kind of lining that up?
I have, but I can't think of which ones they are. There's several other states that are looking at that, though, and starting to do the same thing.
Yeah,
But the great thing about it is, see, this sets the precedent for them. Now they know it's okay. Look what Texas
yeah,
did. We can do that too.
yeah,
And we need to do that. And it needs to be merciless. It needs to be just as merciless. They're the ones who started this fight,
yeah,
and we need to finish it.
yeah, yeah. Um, I need to plug in my computer, so I'm going to step away for just a quick minute.
Okay, no
Carry
problem.
on,
No
Don.
problem. Well, while you're doing that, okay, I'll carry on. So here's another one of those interesting things I thought you all like to hear about. It's kind of interesting. So a friend of mine has this theory. He just ran this by me yesterday. That look at the media and how biased it's been. Um, and they've been losing market share huge, and it continued with this bias. And the reason, of course, they're losing this market share is that people are tired of their lying. They're pushing issues, and they're on the wrong side of they're on the wrong side of men and women's sports. They're on the wrong side of they lied about inflation and what would happen with the tariffs. And then now we have a booming economy. Nobody's hearing about the price of eggs anymore, by the way, right? They lied about Trump and the tariffs working, and all these countries now falling into line.
Mhm.
They lie over and over again, and people are just not believing them, and so their market share is like plummeting. So his theory is this: the first one of these, I'm talking ABC, CBS, NBC, CNN, MSNBC, the first one of those to turn around and say, basically, either A, we were wrong, or B, just start reporting the news in a relatively balanced fashion, they're going to be able to gain a lot of market share at the expense of the other major networks. And I tell you, I've been seeing this, like CNN has been actually reporting stuff in a compared to what they used to do. They're reporting that Trump is killing it in the polling, for example. They never would have said that, 3, 4, 5 months ago, right? But they're doing it now. So I think we're likely to see that happen. Of course, the fallout's going to be, they're going to have to fess up for everything they did. I mean, how many people have died because you're pushing at the shots, for example? How many people got sick? So that will be the thing that they'll have to deal with. But if they're the first ones to offer a mea culpa and essentially say we were wrong, man, I thought it was an interesting theory.
Well, I think it goes back to kind of what I was mentioning earlier, is that like if these people actually start to engage with the successes, they can kind of own a little bit of it. So that's success. They can start wearing that halo a little bit. And so if you're a news organization and you want to start, I mean, the truth is that we are in the majority. Conservatives are in the majority. So if you're focused on revenue, you got to find your customers. Well, we're the customers. So woo us back.
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know if that would happen, because so many of us have found alternate sources of news. Would I
Well,
sit down and watch? I mean, I don't even watch. I don't have cable, so I don't watch any of them. But like sitting down and watching a news program every day, like we used to do. 60 Minutes or
right, sure.
Yeah.
Walter Cronkite, Dan Rather. We remember those guys,
Yeah.
right? Because that's what our parents watched. And which brings me to an interesting point. I agree with you 100%. A lot of people have left and are never coming back, but there's a cadre of people who are still watching it, and it's people in my mother's age range, right? It's the people in their 70s, 80s,
Yeah.
and 90s. They're not watching podcasts. They're still
Yeah.
watching. That's one of the reasons why they're the laggards. They're the ones who remain kind of, if you look at the polling, they're more Democrats still, because they still think they're voting for the JFK era Democrat. Well, JFK is long gone.
Well, and I feel like they're also a lot more forgiving. I mean, my dad is very conservative. He's in his 80s. And, I mean, just as an example, when I went away to college and I turned 18 my freshman year, and my parents, before election day, they brought me a little stuffed elephant and said, "Just remember where you came from, girlfriend." So I mean, it was like, they and I'm a good little soldier. I've never voted Democrat, but I mean, I always listen to both sides, right? I mean, I like to think that I'm fair and balanced and whatever, but maybe I'm not. But I will have conversations with my dad about a person or an issue, and he'll be willing to flip, because he'll kind of go, well, it's like he's more forget. And I'm like, no, these people did rotten things. Like, how can you, I mean, I don't know. Maybe that's just like you said, back in the day, there was a little bit more wiggle room, and that, people were more tempered and they were more likely to be collaborative. And so it was kind of safer to trust. Whereas now it just feels like people are comfortable being rotten and selfish and destructive. And I don't forget, I mean, personally, I'm a forgiving, understanding person. But if like you put my family business out of business, or, I mean, my brother lost his job because he wouldn't get the vaccine. I'm sorry. I don't forgive you. I hope you go out of business. I just,
well,
I don't know.
Well, I think the generation before us was dealing with a different Democrat Party, though, and a different leftist. They were moderate, Democrats, right? So if you look at the Carter administration, for example, whom I thought was like a horrendous president, but I don't think you would say that he was an evil president. I would say he was just a horrendous guy with horrendous policies, but he wasn't out to destroy the country. Obama, on the other hand, I think was out to destroy the country. He said, "I'm here to change the country." Yeah, he did everything he could. And starting in the early 2000s, and the media wasn't like it is now. You could watch the media, and I'm not saying that they would, let's say, for example, it's a debate. It wasn't like 100% fair. We've never had that, but it wasn't like with the moderator is going to literally argue with your candidate. I mean, that was like appalling what we've seen over the
And
last
shut
few
off your
years.
mic.
You never,
Yeah.
yeah, you never saw that sort of thing. You know, yeah, turn off your mic so you can't even talk, and then argue with you. That's what the other guy is for. So it was like 2-on-1 all the time. So they were dealing with a different era too.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that probably explains that. We're dealing in just harsher times because the left has taken over all the loudspeakers. The far left, the radical left, has taken over all the loudspeakers of society. When they were our age, those people were very fringe. You can only find them on a college campus. Now they're
Yeah.
everywhere, and I think that's the difference.
But when you think about the profits, I mean, right? I mean, all these people are being, Colbert, like all these people are losing their jobs, and there's, these people who run these news networks, they want to protect their paycheck. So they're going to have to start investing in people, angles that actually are bringing in revenue, advertisers that want to be, pictured next to the newscaster, and I don't know. I mean,
I'm not sure how the finance works on this. I mean, for example, I believe that the Davos crowd has been funding these people or the BlackRock or whatever, because you take a look at Disney. No company would behave that way
I
and
know.
keep losing money over and over and
I
over.
know.
You look at what Budweiser did. Insane decision. What was the other one? Harley. What they did. It's like just insane decisions. It's like giving a middle finger to your customers and destroying, like, we're talking beloved brands. I mean, Harley Davidson, that is a beloved brand. Disney, but there's certain brands in this country that are just, they're next level, and they destroyed them. And just I don't know if you heard about Jaguar, for example. That's British, but they have just destroyed it. We're talking the sales are in the double digits, for a car of that
Caliber. Yeah.
history of Jaguar, and they've destroyed it with their leftist crap. So I almost wonder if they're being somebody's like supporting that on purpose, and even the ultra rich run out of money at some point, and I think that's the sort of thing that's starting to happen.
Yeah. So for those who are
Yeah.
listening and don't know about the Jaguar campaign, Don, can you?
Mhm.
It was
Yeah. So, oh my goodness, if you could Google this and look it up. I wish I could show it to you, but the Jaguar, they started putting out ads. Now think about, first of all, what is the profile of a person who would buy a Jaguar? It's basically going to be your 50-year-old male who's pretty much made it, and he's got a little bit of ego work, and he's got a little machismo work, and he wants to buy the fast, fancy car. I mean, what kid doesn't remember? What male anyway doesn't remember the Jaguar? The hood ornament, right? That's like a very cool car. So what they did was they started an ad campaign, and the ad campaign doesn't even have a picture of the car in it, if you can imagine that. But what they do have in it is, think about the ads that I think it was Benetton used to put out loud, the multiple. So they got people of all these different races and sexual preferences, and I mean, it's obvious too in the commercials. Weird dress, weird stuff, and they never even show a picture of the car. That's what they're using to market the thing. And then the car itself, they tried to make it an electric vehicle. Now, remember, this is a muscle car, right? And they try to make it this electric vehicle and be environmentally correct and all this. The sales have tanked. I mean, it's like unreal. I mean, we're down to, it's less than 100 cars in a year. Unbelievable. How could they let that happen?
I don't know. I mean,
trying to do it
yeah,
correct.
yeah. They obviously didn't get the memo. The
Yeah,
go broke, memo. But
well, I think we're seeing the same thing on a national scale too. We don't get this news here, but if you get an opportunity, take a look at what's happening in Canada. What's happening in Canada is absolutely mind blowing. So Polyev, who was the conservative guy, lost the election up there. I think the guy's name is Carney, is the leftist who took over for Trudeau. He's basically doing the same policies that
Yeah.
Trudeau did, and he's completely committed to the Green New Deal kind of an agenda, right? Well, one of the things you have to stop and recognize that Canada is not like the United States. We are an economy that is that is super diversified, if you will. The Canadian economy is almost entirely lumber, timber, and natural resource. Timber, coal, fishing. Gosh, I'm thinking here. I'm missing one of these. Hydroelectric and come on, Don. Basically, it's a natural resources driven economy is where I'm trying to go. I know natural gas, oil, right, those are the huge drivers of that economy. So if you put the regulatory brakes on their ability to access their one competitive strength, which is natural resources, what are you going to do to that economy? So for us, that's maybe one of the 7 sectors of the economy. For them, that is the economy. And so the economy in Canada is just in the toilet because of this. I saw a stat the other day. In the last 10 years, their GDP has grown by 1%. Now, I didn't say 1% a year. I said 1% in 10 years. That is horrendous. Assuming inflation is 3% a year, in 10 years, that's 30%, and their GDP has grown like 1%. Think about what that means in terms of the cost of housing. I think the average cost of a house in Canada is something like 15 or 20 times earnings. By comparison here, even in the worst states, it's like maybe 5 to 6 times earnings, just to give you an example. So young people have no shot at buying a house. They flooded the place with immigrants. So the job competition is killer because they work for next to nothing. So you can't get a job. Your college degree costs a fortune. You can't buy a house. They're driving the country into the ground. And now Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and Alberta are making a serious play to leave. And that obviously has huge implications for Canada and for the United States. That's one that's not getting much press in not getting much publicity in national press, but that's going to eventually, that's going to be fascinating. Yeah. Because what do? They become a U.S. territory. They become their own independent country. What does that look like? But I don't think Canada stays together. I think 5 years from now, it's not going to be the Canada we're looking at.
Wow.
And it's all because they keep buying into, they want to be part of the Davos crowd. I mean, look at this. He wouldn't even come to the table to talk to Trump. Now he's stuck with 35% tariffs. And Trump won't even answer the phone, which I think is strategic also.
Oh, sure.
They're going to.
I mean, sorry, but, every woman out there knows the appeal of the hard to get. I mean, so.
Yeah. That's exactly right. and everybody else, look at Europe. So Europe took a 15% tariff across the board. Well, Canada's not getting better than that. So, and did you hear? They went around and tried to shop joining the European Union, but you got nothing to offer. The Europeans said, well, to be in the European Union, you got to be European. Right? And then they tried to go shop themselves to Mexico. Maybe Mexico and Canada can join.
Sure.
Well, the problem, Mexico is not a consumer economy. They can't buy anything to sell it. Right. So what are you doing?
Yeah.
Right. It's like the guy is brain dead. All because you want to put your elbows up is the thing and show that you're a country that's not even the size of one of our biggest states. And like, what are you doing?
I don't know, but they're so friendly and kind, I mean, that's their claim to fame, right?
This is what friendly and kind gets.
I know.
I mean.
So, yeah. I'm looking forward to
every kid knows.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to is it on Saturday when Trump and Putin meet?
Yes, that is going to be one for the ages. And that's another, and the meeting in Alaska. That's awesome. The backstory to the Alaska thing. What about this in one of these rants? So we bought Alaska from Russia for, I think it was 1 or 2 cents an acre. Like, I would say it was the deal of the century, except we bought Louisiana Purchase for about the same price from France. and in both cases is because these countries were constantly going to war and getting themselves in debt. And to afford a way to get out of the debt, they had to sell that real estate to the United States like for pennies on the dollar, right? So that's how we wound up with Alaska in the first place. And they laughed at him at the time. If you remember, they laughed at Jefferson over the Louisiana Purchase, thought that was crazy. Then they laughed at Seward, called it Seward's Icebox. That was Lincoln's Secretary of the Interior, I think, right?
Yeah.
Seward's
I thought he was treasurer or something. Yeah. Anyway, whatever. No. Yeah.
And then 10 years later, they found gold in the Yukon. They stopped calling them names. Amazing how that happens, right? And how could they have known of the strategic importance that Alaska would be. You think the gold is one thing, but the gold is nothing compared to the geographic location of the place.
Right.
Not to mention it, and then the oil, of course, came on later. The natural resources are incredible. But the cool thing about it is, it what a great little trip. I mean, it's right next. We're Russia's neighbor. How about that?
Yeah, as Sarah Palin pointed out. Yeah, nobody would let her live down. But but I mean, honestly, I think that yeah, I mean they have a lot to talk about. There's so much that they could do to, I mean, obviously Ukraine, like let's settle that whole business over there.
Mhm.
Ukrainians keep fighting, which causes the Russians to keep fighting, and I mean it's just a bloodletting over there. I don't
Oh,
I don't understand it. I don't. I feel so badly for
mhm.
both sides. But I mean
Yeah.
the Ukrainians just, they're just throwing bodies, at this, what, into like a windmill, I mean a wood chipper. It's just
Mhm.
it's terrible.
Yeah.
Um
And NATO created this problem. And this is the part the president reports. I mean, the Russians told you we had no. The promise was made when the Soviet Union collapsed. We wouldn't expand NATO to the east. And ever since then, probably about 15 to 20 countries have been added. Russia was too weak to do anything about it in the early 2000s. But when they got strong enough to do something about it, they said no more countries going in NATO, particularly Ukraine, which we all know the history of Ukraine, right? That's been part of Russia forever. And these fools tried to do it anyway. And Putin told them that they weren't going to do it. It's not going to happen. And I see these reports where the Russians are losing so many lives. But look, Russia's what? 140 million people, I think, and the Ukraine is what? 8 million. Do the math. Who can afford to lose more?
exactly.
Uh,
Exactly.
so, and
Like
what's
it.
that old adage about real estate? Possession's 9/10 of the law.
Right,
Russians
right.
on they're on the real estate now. They're not giving it up, and we're not sending troops over to get them off of that real estate, and neither is
Yeah.
Europe. So let's stop kidding ourselves.
Well, and several weeks ago, I was reading a story about how Russia was trying to return the dead bodies of the Ukrainian soldiers,
Mhm.
and Ukraine wouldn't even agree to a meet.
Yeah.
And I mean, again, it just goes back to these Ukrainians
Mhm.
with missing, members of their family. How can, but again, then you have to admit, you have to actually fess up that there
Mhm.
are, thousands and thousands of your citizens who have been killed for nothing. So if you just try to ignore it, look away, I'm not going to arrange the meet, then
Yeah.
nobody can be held accountable.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Ukraine. And the thing is, this could be stopped immediately, pretty much by if NATO just turned off sending them weapons. That pretty much be the end of
Well, and that's kind of what Trump is doing, where he, not NATO, but with the EU, where a lot of these countries would go around, you're not allowed to sell to Russia, but they would sell to like India, and then
it.
India was allowed to sell, right? They would do all these
Mhm.
little back deals
Yeah.
and work it out. And so Trump has turned off that spigot by saying, no, we're going to track who you're selling to.
Mhm.
If your technology ends up, this place or the other, then you are responsible.
Oh,
So
yeah.
he's getting them with all these tariffs and tracking the country of origin. I was reading an article about how, I mean, where it's assembled and what the
Mhm.
majority of its parts are manufactured here, and
Mhm.
but then it travels and kind of gets put together over here, or gets painted over here but assembled over
Mhm.
here, and then final packaging over here, and then the seats are sewn here. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
like everybody's got a hand in the
Mhm.
production. And so where is this product actually from? So which tariff should they,
Mhm.
should apply? And how these countries have been, just kind of shifting things around to the lowest tariff country to try to sneak that into the border and across the border. And Trump's coming up with a plan to be able to address that. And just, I mean, he should just say, well, I'm just going to give you the highest tariff level. If you're going to play games with me,
Mhm.
I'm just going to charge you the very highest tariff level.
Yeah, I
But
saw that. I saw that discussion with India specifically, right? And let's face it, the world runs on incentives. And you can say something till the cows come home, but unless there's a financial penalty or financial
yeah,
reward associated with it, you're not going to change behavior. And that's another thing I love about this guy. He's implementing what Kissinger used to call realpolitik, right? This is how the world really works. Forget about your textbook and your academia and all that nonsense. Here's how the world really works, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's
Yeah.
working.
Yeah. I mean, Trump has been, theory versus practice. He has been in practice for so long.
Mhm.
And as I have conversations with people too who, oh, this is going to get Trump. Oh, that's going to get Trump. Oh, and it's like, do you really think this guy, is here to lose? For goodness sakes. Like
After what
what?
he's through,
I mean,
yeah.
they've tried to murder him. They
Mhm.
tried to imprison his family. They've tried to bankrupt him. I mean,
Yeah.
this is not a guy who, I mean, frankly, maybe the reason he is president is because he felt like the only way that I'll live a peaceful life in freedom is if I actually jump back in and start untangling all this stuff and getting rid of all these people. Because otherwise, I'll spend my entire life,
Mhm.
like David, on the run, hiding in caves, trying to escape Saul. I mean, I
Well,
just,
at the end of the day, I thought about this, and this is I think we've had two essential presidents, right? There's a lot of great presidents, some bad ones, but two essential presidents: George Washington and Abraham Lincoln, right? Those two guys put everything on the line. Had the British gotten a hold of George Washington, they would
mm,
have they would have basically murdered him in the most painful way possible because
sure,
that's the way
sure,
things were done back then. Abraham
sure.
Lincoln, they did murder him at the end of the day, but think about the threats against him. Think about what he went through in order to make that happen. I think we're looking at quite possibly the third essential president. I mean, the president who put everything on the line like George Washington did, who put everything on the line like Abraham Lincoln did, and essentially saved the country. I think we're getting an opportunity to see that in our lifetime. And like I said before, I thought that Reagan be the last great president that I've seen. But this guy, it is hard for me to admit this because I'm such a Reagan fan. I think he's surpassing Reagan. This is like he's literally put his life on the line.
Yeah,
Which
I
does
mean, yeah, I mean, I'm sorry to cut you off, but he's
go ahead.
triumphing while he's still being persecuted.
Yeah. We've never seen anything. Well, we have. Like I said, it was Lincoln and Washington. And we get an opportunity to live through it again. So it's a pretty amazing time to be alive.
Yeah,
Um,
it is. I
yeah.
mean, honestly, during Obama and of course during Biden, I kept thinking, "Oh my God,
Yeah.
Jesus is coming back on a cloud. Like
No.
there is no way we're going to survive this. The only silver lining is Jesus." Which of course it's still the silver lining. But
Right.
I thought I may see that guy. I
No.
may see that happen.
that-
And
That's how bad they had it. You're right. I mean, I remember seeing things that were, and I was amazed that no one was talking about it. Maybe they were afraid to talk about it, but it was straight out of the Book of Revelations kind of stuff. I mean, you can't use cash. Are you kidding me? And nobody sees this? I mean, there were places that wouldn't take cash anymore. They would only take credit cards so they could track you. Um, it was like crazy. But that's when the end does come. I'll tell you this: what we learned when the end does come. Now we know what it looks like. It'll look like that.
no, it
We,
won't.
we yeah,
We are not supposed to know, Don.
yeah. No,
It's
well,
gonna look totally different. It has to,
I don't
because we've
know,
already seen it.
man. That was some Orwellian action we just lived through.
Oh, for sure. For
For
sure.
sure.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh
hey,
my
my
gosh.
friend, we have used up a full hour. I can't. We did it again, Leslie. Audience, thank you guys so much for coming and hearing us. We have had a blast and looking for the next. Who knows what next week will bring, by the way. Keep your fingers crossed. I think it's going to bring the next couple of weeks going to be pretty exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. This is going to be a wonderful holiday season, right? I mean, we're going to have so
Absolutely.
many things to be truly, truly grateful for.
Absolutely. Well, hey, well, you guys have a great week. We've enjoyed our wonderful Wednesday with you as always. Let freedom ring. And Leslie, any final words?
No, not really. I mean, I feel like I've used up all my words. But
We did that. We did that.
I'm really having a good time talking to you. And honestly, like if, I wish I could respond to, some of the chat topics, but if there's things that people want to hear about, I mean, Dawn and I are deciding what to talk about, just based on what's interesting to us. But, goodness, if there's something that or a topic or an area that folks want to hear about, then, Let's do it.
Love
Let's
it.
look into it.
Absolutely. Yep. Send us a chat. We'll be all over it. All right, guys. Good night, everybody.